welcome back to this show. Late Night Lately. It's the Late Night Podcast for the website, cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, is the website. Go there. I'm your host, Chad White. And I got all of that wrong. But you know what? Who cares? It's fine. Happy summer. We're on the first day of summer. The summer solstice, the longest day in the world of all time. Is that true still? I don't know. Here we are. I've had a busy day already. A very abnormally busy Friday. I didn't even get a chance to really sit down and watch any late night today. I did turn. This is going to sound so mean. You know what? I'll get to that when I come across the show. Well, fine. I'll just start it. Okay. I was watching Colbert's Late Show. As I typically do, I sat down in front of the TV, went on YouTube TV, not the YouTube app, the YouTube TV, the cable platform, where I record every late night show, and I watch some of the episodes. Not all the episodes, and not always all the way through. I watch Seth Meyers, typically first, then Kimmel, and then I will balance out who's next. Today, it happened to be Colbert, and because After Midnight is canceled. And as I turned it on, and I think he was maybe 3 minutes into the monologue, and there was still no joke. Sure, there was an attempt at jokes in which the audience laughed once and then clapped for 45 seconds. That's my biggest issue with Colbert, is that there's just so many applause breaks. What are we applauding? Let's get to the jokes. You have to earn the celebration that is your joke. And it gets tough watching him, and not just to pick on him, it also gets tough watching The Tonight Show, and it also gets tough watching Kimmel, because sometimes they just make statements, and John Oliver, and it's very tough watching John Oliver, and Jon Stewart. It's the toughest out of all of them. Because Stewart and Colbert, mostly out of all those people I just named, Stewart and Colbert will just say something, and then people will start clapping. And it makes me think, why? What joke was there? Is there a point? No. So at some point we're just sitting there listening to people clap for, if a monologue is 10 to 15 minutes, we're sitting there listening to people clap for 3 or 4 minutes in total, as somebody stops their talking, which I'm not a fan of. I really don't like it. For a long time, I disliked The Tonight Show because that's what I felt his jokes were. And then I watched Corden. I'll put a timeline of that. I was watching The Tonight Show, and then Corden comes on, and I'm just thinking, it's worse here. Okay, for The Late Show, it's not just a pick on him, not just a pick on Colbert, but man, I've had this problem with him since his show began. I feel it's just having it in that theater is just so much work. Like, I watch clips of old Letterman and old Conan, and they're telling jokes, they're getting things across. Whereas here it's just he says like, "Hi everybody." Oh, here he comes. Here comes Maverick. Okay. Colbert this week, in his first week as a lone late night host on CBS, Colbert this week had a yes, I see you, buddy. I know. Colbert had a very busy week, having on wonderful people, including Tammy Duckworth, who I love it when he has politicians on. Mariska Hargitay to talk about her new documentary, Carrie Condon, Nate Bargatze, which are the clips that that managed to get a lot of views. The interviews, excuse me. Allison Williams, Damson Idris, Paul Simon, and Representative Maxwell Frost. This, I'm noticing this more and more, especially after I pointed it out to myself maybe a couple of months ago. But the Colbert, Fallon, they're all everybody. It's not just these two. Their views on YouTube are so low for their interviews, unless it's somebody who collectively people want to see. For some reason, the David Spade interview and the Wiz Khalifa interview from interviews from last week have more views than the Iowa Debris one. And Steve Martin, rightfully so, is almost at 500,000. Anyway, all right, let's go on with Kimmel. Kimmel this week had on, I'm sorry, I lost my place. Had on Steve Martin, Zach Cherry, Io Debris, The Offspring played Come Out and Play, and Pixies played some songs, one song. Jeff Ross, Charlie Day, and Big Time Rush, Rami Youssef, and Seth Rogen. I also believe The Offspring, they had more videos up. I think it might be on their channel. I don't know. Yeah, this is my relationship to The Offspring. I do listen to a lot of music, like just so much music. Oh, we also had Science Bob on. I listen to just a lot of music. And The Offspring often comes up between my two subscriptions, which are YouTube Music and SiriusXM. The Offspring is obviously always played on Lithium. Sometimes 90s09, but always on Lithium, and sometimes Spectrum. And then I liked a couple of songs from me having from hearing them mostly again on SiriusXM. So I liked them on YouTube Music, and now with every alternative 90s, and I have a couple of. I'm not kidding. This is not a joke. I have a couple of alternative 90s playlists for rock. I don't want to keep things separate, or just like rock playlists in general. The Offspring will always come up. Or like if I choose like a radio, if I have there's speakers all around the house. So if I'm just playing, a general 90s channel or a rock channel on SiriusXM or YouTube Music, it'll just start playing The Offspring. So according to YouTube, I am the biggest Offspring fan. When I'm really a huge fan of HAIM. Just listening to the new album, it is fantastic. John Oliver talked about the juvenile justice system. Speaking of the Tonight Show, a couple of minutes ago, he had on, Dakota Johnson, and that might be an old video. That is an old video. Yeah, Dakota Johnson. No, that's like a for your consideration. Okay. Anyway, he had on Harvey R. Bardem and Carrie Coon, John Christ, who said no to this, to me interviewing him multiple times. Uma Thurman and Lee Byung-hun from the Squid Game, the Sisters HAIM. One of them I'm in love with. It's Esty. Brianne Howry and Antonia Gentry. HAIM also performed. Priyanka Chopra Jonas, Lionel Boyce, and Keke Palmer performed a couple of songs, a medley, I guess, off of her new album. Which, yes, she has a new album out. Again, I listen to a shit ton of music. So I go through the New Music Fridays and on Apple Music and YouTube Music and NPR and Pitchfork, and I pick and choose. Give me the music. Seth Meyers had a good week as well. He had several closer looks. He also had Arnold Schwarzenegger on, Barry Diller, Christine Baranski, James Acaster was wonderful, Meredith Hayden, Cola Scola, and Chris Hayes and Mike Birbiglia. They also were able to do a nice little desk bit, which they don't do often, but they do more so than a lot of other late night shows, where one of the writers, Ben Wareheim, I believe that's his name, played a wealthy late night audience member. I should mute that. Yes. Oh, Ben Wareheit. Excuse me, not Wareheim. And then on the Daily Show, Stewart had a very long monologue that I will say was largely good. It was about half an hour long, and then he also interviewed John Mulaney. You know what? With that monologue about the Israel and Iran and Trump's response to that, I gotta say he might win an Emmy. Klepper took up hosting duties, and he also had coverage of the military birthday parade for Trump. He interviewed Bill Clinton and James Patterson for their new book, and he also talked to Matt Berringer. If you don't know who Matt Berringer is, you are missing out. He's a musician and he's good at what he does. And he also sat down to do an edition of Sports War with Desi Lydic talking about Caitlin Clark. And then Jon Stewart, they released an after the cut clip of Jon Stewart talking to the Pedro Pascal lookalike contest winner in New York. He also happened to be the lighting designer, I believe, for The Daily Show, which is great. He was also on the Today Show, which is it's insane. It's just it seems like it was all faked and fed in, but whatever. All right, let's move on to the main topic. Seth Meyers had an interview with Variety where he talked about. This comes from Ethan Shanfield. Seth Meyers on why there won't be new late night hosts. SNL UK and his Axe Not Safe for Work weekend update joke. It's a good interview piece, but there in the interview he talks about he mentions why he won't think that there will be a new late night hosts. He said, unless some major sea change happens, I don't think there's going to be a whole new wave of network hosts in the way there's always been. Nobody understands this business and this format better than Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel previously said that in 10 years, there's not going to be any late night hosts at all. So when he talks about it, I tend to share his opinion. And it's, if you look at the era, or I guess whatever late night is right now, this kind of medium. Last week I spoke about how the Emmy category is basically essentially almost non-existent. We're taken down to 3, and the shows that are there have been there for a while, but there's no point kind of, if CBS is giving up its 11:45, is that true? It's 12:15 or 12:35. I don't know what time after midnight and James Corden came on, then that could pave the way for NBC to do the same thing. Seth is he's been open about wanting to do the show as long as NBC will have him do late night. He's contracted until 2028. Kimmel's contracted for a couple more years, and everybody else is basically locked up for a little bit. But after that, what's going to happen? What's going to happen if it's 2025 now, but in 2035, what happens if streaming essentially becomes the thing and broadcast and cable are on their last legs, which I don't think will happen. The internet infrastructure will have to become so much greater than what it is right now. That's part of the reason why streaming is not. It is overtaking television, which I'll get to in the constitutionals that comes out today, but it's going to, and constitutionals 341 for you freaks who need a catalog, but it'll be a lot. It'll have to change a lot based on how many people are able to access high-speed internet in the middle of nowhere, Kansas or Iowa or Indiana. Anyway, but all that to say is, yeah, I mean, in 5 years, network TV is going to be completely different. The Simpsons, Family Guy, Bob's Burgers, and American Dad aren't going to be running 22 episodes for Family Guy, 20 episodes, but they're not going to be running full seasons. They're going to be running, 3/4 of seasons. The Simpsons is only going to air 15 on television, and they have roughly 2 or 3 that are going to be on Disney Plus. And that's for the next 4 seasons. Who knows what's going to happen after that? And then network shows are already running less anyway. Grey's Anatomy is long running in itself, but what happens when that's going to change? We have CBS really turning into Survivor and Amazing Race and Big Brother with 90-minute episodes, but that's because those are easy and they're cheap compared to having. I love the show Ghosts, but having more episodes of Ghosts, which already does 20 or 22, something like that. That was a bad example. Network TV is changing, and it's not going to be for the better because of streaming, and people are getting paid. The actors and the people behind the scenes are getting paid less, and networks just kind of want to keep that money for themselves to bolster up their revenue and everything. It's a real, not a shock, and I don't want to say a bummer. It is a bummer, but it's a real downer to see what was once a great institution just go downhill, because the tides are changing when it comes to how people enjoy media. I want to read more continued quotes. He said, "It does bum me out that other people won't have exactly this opportunity. Then again, when you think about podcasts, they just have as big of a reach as we ever had." And it's very true. The same people who, if at this point in time, if Carson was around, he'd probably his viewership is probably equal to that of an episode of Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. Or, well, I mean, hold on. Conan wishes. No offense to Conan. Conan wishes he would ever get that many listeners for one episode of a podcast. But I mean, that is the truth. If Friends average 20 million viewers per episode or something like that, it's different. If podcasts, they can become so niche. You can have a show like Doughboys, and they could probably be getting, I don't know, 100,000 listeners per episode. I don't know if that's good or not. I'm just saying numbers. You could have Joe Rogan, and he can get 1 million listeners per episode, and Doughboys could get 500,000 per episode. And that, if you equate that to television, what is now, those are like really excellent numbers compared to, like this show and and other and maybe like even NPR podcast that's not Fresh Air. Fresh Air is more than likely doing so many better numbers than all songs considered alt Latino. And I don't want to pick on that show because I do like that show, but it's different. It's different. And that's the thing that podcasting, I think companies need to understand, is that depending on the show, it's going to be different for everybody. And just because Conan is excelling, or Amy Poehler, or your Joe Rogans, or Kara Swisher, one of those people I don't like. It's Joe, obviously. But just because those people are excelling and they're able to get ads for Ford or able to get ads for Muscle Milk, I don't know what Joe's ads are like. You're able to get ads for big companies, does not mean that everybody else is going to be doing the same thing. NPR still struggles to get ads for this show. I'm trying to think of other like shows, because I don't listen to a lot of I have what I have, my podcast. I have what I have, and that's it. I'm scrolling through. I'm on Pocket Casts, and they have on their web app, and I'm in the Discover section, and I'm looking at. Here's a podcast, Silver Linings with the Old Gays. We're based on how many people are rating it. There's no ratings for this podcast. It's brand new. I'm sure that they're not getting the same type of ad opportunities, even if it's from iHeart Podcast or iHeart Radio. Yeah, iHeart Podcast. It's not going to get the same opportunities as, is this a queer section? Oh, Pods for Pride. I'm like, there's a lot of gay podcasts here. But it's probably not getting the same amount of ad opportunities from HeadGum's So True with Caleb Huron, which is not getting the same type of opportunities from, that, I don't know, Pushkin Industries, Bad Women, the Blackout Ripper is probably getting. It's all tough, and these companies have to understand that it's not all. You can't just you can't just make a podcast and then it do well. I'm sure even Good Hang with Amy Poehler, even though I see the videos on YouTube, I see that a whole hour-long conversation between Amy Poehler and Seth Meyers has 1 million viewers. It's not the same as, everything else, every other podcast that Joe Rogan or Call Her Daddy Alex, whatever the fuck her name is, Alex Cooper. It's not the same as those two. Meyers also adds, if you're a great lover of the institution of late night talk shows, there's probably some sadness in your future. But if you love funny people telling funny jokes and talking to people in interesting ways, that's always going to be available. And it's very true. But even still, Conan's transition to podcasting is just, I'm so glad he's doing it and he's enjoying himself and other people are enjoying him too. It's just something that's not my bag. I don't care about watching his podcasts. I don't want to listen to the podcast. Also, it's a show that I have to turn down frequently. Everybody's so loud, and they always end up screaming. Like, my goodness, it's just, it's whatever. By 2035, Kimmel and Meyers in turn are correct. We won't have late night as the way it is. We lost Friday shows. There used to be Friday shows. And now that's all going to shift to podcasts. And if anything, it'll all shift to online. You'll see more YouTube shows or Netflix streaming shows that are, you won't see more. You'll see a shift towards more of those. You won't see more of them because I think Netflix is kind of done with the talk show thing. I think Netflix will do more talk show stuff, but I think Hulu is completely done. If Hulu comes out with more talk shows after Sarah Silverman's show, which was good, I will be so surprised. If Hulu and Disney Plus and Paramount Plus, just if any of those and Peacock have an Apple TV, have any more streaming talk shows, I will just color me surprised because it'll be very interesting to see. And if anything, there'll be 10 episodes at a time, and then they'll be canceled soon after that. But I went off on a tangent, and I meant to. I was trying to say something else, but yeah, the YouTube thing. We'll see more shows like Hot Ones, just kind of very specific shows that are heavily advertised and are hoping to get an audience of 1 million or 2 million per video because of how sensationalized it is. Listen, if you like what you heard here, head to the website, cpluscomedy.com, where you can see me talk to famous people sometimes. If you want to see a video version of this show, go to youtube.com/cpluscomedy, where you can see me in all my glory, probably wearing a shirt that I wore last week. And you can also, I washed it. As where you can also see a video version of the other podcasts, Late Night Lately, the Late Night Show, as well as LinkedIn Logs, the Constitutionalist Podcast, the Entertainment Business News Podcast, and LinkedIn Logs, the Jobs Podcast. I forgot what I was doing. You can also see me talk to famous people on youtube.com/cpluscomedy. I just talked to Julia Seabaugh, the director of a Mark Maron documentary. You can follow us on social media, Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok @cpluscomedy, me @ChadBlackWhite. Thanks so much. See you next time. Bye.